My name is Daniel, and I'm from Chicago. I grew up in a loving but extremely conservative household. My family, my parents, were immigrants from Guatemala, deeply religious Catholics. As a child, I always felt different, though I couldn't quite put my finger on it. While other boys were busy playing sports or roughhousing, I found joy in collecting colorful stones, drawing intricate patterns, and observing birds. I often felt more at peace in my own world than among my peers. By the time I reached high school, those feelings of being different began to crystallize. I started noticing that I was attracted to other boys. It was a confusing time because I had no language to describe what I was experiencing. In our household, topics like love and relationships were strictly framed within the church's teachings. Anything outside those boundaries felt forbidden and dangerous. One Sunday, as we attended our regular church service, a ritual we rarely missed, the priest's sermon struck a chord I wasn't prepared for. He spoke vehemently against homosexuality, describing it as a grave sin, an evil that would condemn souls to hell. As he spoke, I felt as though he was directing every word at me. His descriptions of immorality and his accusations that homosexuals were inherently depraved filled me with shame and confusion. I felt exposed, like my secret had been laid bare to everyone in that congregation. When we returned home, I was overwhelmed by an unbearable sense of guilt. I couldn't shake the feeling that there was something fundamentally wrong with me. At the same time, I knew I couldn't share my thoughts with anyone, least of all my parents. They would never understand. Instead, I withdrew into myself, creating a barrier between my inner world and the people around me. The isolation was suffocating, and for a time, I struggled with dark thoughts, questioning my worth and purpose. During my college years, I began to explore my identity more openly, though cautiously. I met a few people who, like me, were navigating their own journeys in the shadows. My first relationships were with men who were also closeted, and while those connections provided some comfort, they were shrouded in secrecy and fear. My parents remained in the dark about my life. Their devout faith and traditional values made it impossible for me to imagine coming out to them. Our phone calls became less frequent, and when we did speak, the conversations were superficial. I avoided any topic that might reveal the truth about who I was. After graduating from college in 1995, I moved to Philadelphia. It was a fresh start, a chance to build a life where I could be myself. There, I met my first serious boyfriend, a man named Oliver. Unlike me, Oliver was out to his family and friends. He was unapologetically himself, and his confidence was both inspiring and intimidating. One night, as we lay in bed, Oliver asked me a question that would change my life. "Daniel, can you live with the fact that your parents don't really know who you are?" His words hit me like a thunderbolt. I'd spent so many years hiding, rationalizing my silence as a way to protect myself and my family, that I hadn't stopped to consider what it cost me. That conversation was a turning point. I realized that I couldn't continue living a fragmented life. I needed to bridge the gap between who I was and the version of myself my parents believed they knew. Inspired by Oliver's courage, I decided to write my parents a letter. It was a 3-page confession, raw and heartfelt. I poured out everything, my struggles, my fears, my pain, and my deep love for them. I explained how much it hurt to hide such an important part of myself from them. Sending that letter was one of the most terrifying things I've ever done. I had no idea how they would react. A few days later, the phone rang. It was my parents. They were both on the line, their voices trembling with emotion. They told me they loved me unconditionally, though they admitted they didn't fully understand what I was going through. Their love for me remained steadfast. We cried together over the phone, releasing years of tension and unspoken words. For the first time, I felt a profound sense of freedom. It was as though a weight I'd carried my entire life had been lifted. A few months later, my parents and I embarked on a long-planned trip to Spain. The journey was transformative. Walking the streets of Barcelona, exploring the Alhambra, and sharing meals together felt different now that the truth was out. My father, especially, seemed to make an effort to connect with me in ways he hadn't before. We shared long conversations, not just about my life, but about his own dreams and struggles. Those moments became precious memories. 3 months after our trip, My father passed away unexpectedly. The grief was overwhelming, but amid the sadness, I found solace in knowing that he had truly known me. There were no unresolved questions, no hidden truths. That knowledge gave me a sense of peace that I carry with me to this day. As I reflect on my journey, I'm reminded of Oliver, who passed away several years ago. It was his unwavering belief in the importance of authenticity that pushed me to come out to my parents. His words continue to resonate with me. It's important for people to know who we really are, especially our loved ones. Life is unpredictable, and our time with those we love is fleeting. Being able to share my truth with my parents remains one of the most significant acts of my life. Today, I strive to live authentically in all aspects of my life. I've learned that while the path to self-acceptance can be fraught with challenges, it is also filled with moments of profound connection and love. My story is a testament to the power of truth and the unyielding strength of unconditional love.